Hello, welcome back to the channel and welcome to the Rolls-Royce Spectre, Rolls' first battery electric vehicle, but not its last, because by 2030, that's all it's going to make. It is a big coupe, it seats 4, we'll come to that in a moment, but it's 5.5 metres long, nearly 3 tonnes, and it is pretty vast and has got a very capable range. It's got 102 kilowatt hours of battery under the floor, that's about 700 kilos of that, and it's got 2 motors, one at the front with 255 horsepower, one at the back, much more powerful with like 480 horsepower, but they don't make peak power at the same place in the same time, so overall system output is 576 brake horsepower or thereabouts. But don't focus too much on thinking that it's like other EVs that just give you instant oomph from the off. It's supposed to be an electric car and introduce that speed to you gently, but we'll come to that in a moment. It's got a very low drag coefficient of just CD 0.25, which is really important on an EV for maximising range. So although there is the grille, as always, it is wider than ever, it is more sculpted than ever. The Spirit of Ecstasy herself has spent several hundred hours in a wind tunnel on her own. And there's this very sleek car. It tapers down to the tail, it tapers in at the back. These light clusters cleave off the air at the back and it slopes very, very gently to this tail to give it that really clean, crisp look through the air and, to my eyes, quite an elegant shape. These doors are the longest in current Rolls history. They're 1.5 metres long. They might be the longest in Rolls' entire history, but because of the coach building in the early days, it's hard to tell. They open to this 4-seat interior. Let's have a quick look inside. So welcome to the inside. These power doors are really cool. I just put my foot on the brake and there it goes. And it is, in terms of material quality, just as nice as any other Rolls-Royce. It's really, really lush and sumptuous. In the back, I'm 5'10". If I sit behind my own seating position, I have about that much knee room and about the same amount of headroom. It's really, this is a full 4-seater. It's not a 2+2. You'd very happily travel a long distance. Sometimes hard to tell when one of Rolls-Royce's V12 engines is running. Well, same deal for this, obviously. It just makes no noise at all. The loudest noise in the cabin is quite often your hands on the steering wheel, so I won't do it. The material quality is really nice. That is the ping of actual metal vents. The designer's really happy about the fact that they make a different tone. The ones on the edge make a different tone to the ones in the middle. And it's really smooth from the off. They've sort of modulated the throttle response to be easy as you pull away. And whether you're driving this car yourself, or whether you're a chauffeur, or whether you're a passenger, what is really pleasant is a car that goes down to a complete standstill very, very gently. There's no jerk when you stop, and then as you pull away again, it does the same. So I'm giving a reasonable amount of throttle, but it doesn't just race forward. It's got a real, genuine, soft, luxury urge to it. But do not think that it isn't fast as a result of that. It really gets on. This is a car that goes from 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds. So it is quick, it has power in reserve, you get a little power reserve meter, a bit like the internally combusted car to tell you just how much oomph you've got left. And if you want, it can make a noise. I've had it in silent mode at the minute, but one of these presets is set up to Rolls-Royce sound. If I turn that on, I don't know how well you can hear that, but it makes a sort of, I don't know, it sounds a bit like a spaceship in hyperdrive mixed with, look, I'm going to do a contemporary popular culture reference. Did you ever watch Crocodile Dundee? And he swings that Aboriginal bull sounder, I think they're called, on a rope. Whoa, 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 whoa. It makes a sound a bit like that, with undercurrents of sort of V12 internally combusted noise too. It's quite a nice noise, but I'm very happy with it off as well. This car sits on Rolls' architecture of luxury platform, which is a very adaptable all aluminium structure based around sort of 4 nodes at each corner, and there are aluminium extrusions along the floor and across the floor, which means they can make cars of any kind of width, any kind of height. So the Cullinan, the Phantom, the Ghost and this are all based off of it. This has got a very flat floor underneath that battery pack, which helps contribute to that extremely good aerodynamic efficiency, and it means there's just hardly any wind noise at all. It's so slick through the air, there's hardly any wind noise. And because the battery pack helps act as a sound insulator as well, there's also not much road noise. So when you throw in the fact that there's no internally combusted engine making noise, there's no sort of gearbox with its own noise in it, you've got the insulation in the floor, you've got the insulation from the fact that it's very slippery through the air. This is an incredibly quiet car, an unbelievably quiet car. It runs on air springs, big air sprung units. I'm doing 55 miles an hour and there is a sort of genuine looseness and float, and it breathes really easily over bumps. Some air sprung cars, and this is one of them because it's got very low profile tyres, they get what, there's no better engineering word I can think of than sproing, which is a slightly echoey, boing boing boingy, like sitting on the top of an empty plastic drum and tapping it. It's got that sort of thing going on, but it's really sort of settles into the background really easily. It's really quiet, this car. It's really smooth. It's really supple. Rolls thinks, they call it a magic carpet ride, and depending on which engineer or designer you talk to, they say, yeah, this might just be the most comfortable one going. But if you do wind it up a bit as well, it's got active anti-roll bars, front and rear. They slacken right off in a straight line to give it that sort of suppleness and looseness. But as you get it into sort of twistier corners, it's really impressive. I mean, really genuinely impressive. For a car that weighs as much as this, it should not be able to track around corners the way that this car does. But I suppose if you firm up the roll bars, it's got a 50-50 weight distribution or thereabouts, the centre of gravity is very low, it really does drive really nicely. It's got every right in the world to ride as well as it does. It does not have the right to handle as well as it does. And the steering is beautiful. It's just consistent and smooth and slick. It's the same weight all the time. Very, very occasionally on the way through a sort of constant radius corner, it's got active rear steer, and that sort of pitches into a corner. Just sometimes the steering just sort of hovers for a microsecond without the normal self-centering that it has, and it just makes your fingers go, oh, what's going on? The steering's just sort of stuck in that position. But it is really, really nice. Rolls owners tend to have 6 or more other cars to choose from. So it can charge at 195 kilowatts from a fast charger, but is unlikely to find itself at one very often, because with a 330 mile range, it'll do most people's day out. And if they want to go further, well, they've got at least one other car to choose from. It costs from £330,000. Is it worth it? Well, all Rolls-Royces are expensive. The bespoke stuff you can do with it is something really, really special. 4 in 10 owners of these, of Spectres, are new to the Rolls-Royce brand. So that's how much it is broadening the Rolls-Royce brand, because usually 8 out of 10 people have already got a Rolls-Royce, but here only 6 out of 10 have got a Rolls-Royce. And the average age of Rolls-Royce buyers is like 43, which is extraordinary, because for every 60-year-old who buys one, you've got to have a 20-year-old who buys one for that to be about the same. That is amazing. This company has done extraordinarily good things since BMW took it over, what, 25 years ago? And the Spectre is the latest car that they have absolutely nailed, spot on. So thank you for joining me. You can find a full written review with more technical details and some interviews with the chief exec and stuff over at autocar.co.uk, or you can find that either on digital subscription or in print, as it has been weekly since 1895. See you next time.